I haven't got too much to say today. I'm not in Belfast at the moment. I'm visiting Croydon, so that's why I've got a different setup. I haven't got the green screen or anything. Yeah, basically, as everyone's aware, I think it was last Friday now, Ricky Jones was found not guilty by a jury of his peers in a non-white part of London. Well, virtually all of London's non-white now, but a non-white part of London found him not guilty. I'm currently looking into making another complaint about him for doing for making false claims about razor blades behind stickers. I've never gone around putting stickers up, but I've peeled off quite a lot of far left stickers, and you tend to find either they're fairly loose and you just get your thumbnail under them or fingernail under them and you can just peel them straight off, or they're stuck on pretty solid and you'll end up scraping them off with a key, or sometimes I've actually taken a wallpaper scraper to them. But probably the best thing to do with them is actually to draw over them with a Sharpie, because as long as you're not actually defacing any public property, if you're only going over the sticker, as far as I'm aware, you're not actually committing an offence by going over it with Sharpies. So I've gone out with Sharpies going over them. But my point that I'm getting to is that if someone finds a sticker, whether it's one of us finding a far left sticker, or whether it's one of us finding a far left sticker, or the far left finding a sticker of one of our stickers, if there's a razor blade underneath it, someone's very unlikely to hurt themselves with it, because they'll either be scraping it off with a key, or they just get their finger under the corner and pull it off. So it's very unlikely that someone would hurt themselves with a razor blade. And in the photo that I saw that was from a week previous to what Ricky Jones was talking about, it was a Stanley blade, so someone would be even more likely to spot it and less likely to injure themselves. So it's virtually impossible for someone, whether it's one of us or far left, to injure themselves removing a sticker with a razor blade behind it. I've been in contact with the police, the TSSA union, and I've done online searches, and I can't find anything about the razor blade incidents that Jones was talking about. So it looks to me at the moment like he was actually committing an offence by spreading disinformation at a time when people were rioting. A few people have compared his case to that of Lucy Connolly, and it was actually a different charge that he was on than Lucy Connolly, and there was like less of a burden of proof, not so much a burden of proof, but less of a need for intent with what Lucy Connolly was done for. It's not right, but she obviously had a weaker case defending herself, because when it comes to racial things, they don't care about intent. If you accidentally offend someone or incite someone, you've committed a crime. Whereas what Ricky Jones was tried with, they actually need to prove intent. So that's another reason why she was instructed to plead guilty, and he got off. Like I said, it isn't right. Anyway, it looks like she's getting out soon anyway, so it's probably best if we don't talk about her too much now, because so she can get on with her life once she gets out. I understand she's been invited to speak at Parliament when she gets out. Hopefully she'll have enough sense just to not do that, and just to stay out of the way and get on with her life. But anyway, like I said, I'm gonna go, while I'm in London, I'm gonna go into a Metropolitan Police station, and I'm gonna report. I'm going to report Ricky Jones for spreading disinformation. It's unlikely anything come of it, but at least we're trying. At least we're proving that they do get away with things. I might report Nick Lowles as well. I assume that I have assumed that he'd been reported for the misinformation that he was spreading at the time. But sometimes a lot of people talk about it and no one actually does it. So I might try and report him just in case he hasn't already been reported. But it's absolutely disgusting, the misinformation that they can get away with, spreading. And something someone else was saying before was that at the time of the riots with the Lucy Connolly thing, they were saying that people were setting fire to hotels, whereas people weren't going around cutting people's throats. But like I've said before, no hotel was in serious danger of catching fire. The fires was like bins set fire by fire doors. So there would have to be something drastically wrong on a scale similar to Grenfell for the building to actually catch fire. And even if it did, it's a low-rise building with several fire escapes. So even if the building had burnt down, nobody would have been hurt. But like I said, it wasn't going to burn down anyway. Whereas as far as saying that nobody was getting their throats cut at the time, obviously 3 young girls were murdered and 10 other people, including children, were seriously wounded with knives. I don't know if any of them had their... It's horrible to speak about this, but I'll get it out of the way quickly. I don't know if any of them did have their throats cut, but they were certainly killed and seriously injured with knives, which equates to the same thing, really. And then also after that, there was the Muslim guys who had the swords outside the mosque, and the police just gave them a friendly warning about it. So there was, in my opinion, a serious chance of somebody getting their throat cut. So there's a little funny comment there. Is Ricky Jones Owen Jones's stepdad? That's an interesting one. There'd be a match made in, not in heaven, but in wherever they make weird matches. Anyway, I'm sure that'd be some sort of reality TV show if it did turn out to be true. Yeah, so that's about it with the Ricky Jones thing. I'm going to try and report it. But what you need to remember is, with anything like that, is there are a lot of black people, obviously not all of them, but there are a lot that just see that a black man, that just wouldn't want to find a black man guilty. Maybe certain things like paedophilia, or when they've done something to one of their own people or something like that virtually any black man might want to see him done for. But a lot of the time they see it as an us and them thing. It's like when a black criminal gets killed. Obviously you get white criminals as well that commit terrible crimes and get shot by the police. But if a white scumbag gets shot by the police, most white people are like, good. But then a black scumbag, most white people say good because they see him or her as a criminal before they see him as a white person. But then with a lot of black people, probably a majority, it's the other way around, where when a black scumbag gets killed by the police, they see him as a black person before they see him as a scumbag. In my opinion, it might be controversial. It's probably not that controversial, really. But in my opinion, I think the world is probably a better place without Mark Duggan and George Floyd. And there's probably a few black guys walking around or driving around in London that wouldn't be alive if Mark Duggan was still alive. I don't actually know that, but I'm just surmising. But he was a very dangerous criminal. But then when something happens to them, the blacks are up in arms, like in America with Rodney King. I know this is going back, it's over 30 years ago now, I'm feeling old. With Rodney King, when the police arrested him for driving dangerously whilst off his head on drugs, he was driving through black neighbourhoods. If he'd killed someone, it would have most probably been another black guy. But they don't see it like that. They're just so anti-police that they're just completely against it. But the police, by stopping him that evening, they may have quite well saved the life of a black man or a black woman. Oh, better get this one up as well as it goes. What's that one? Loads reported, Nick. Hope not hate for the acid post. Yes, if that is the case, it's absolutely ridiculous that he hasn't he hasn't been done for it. He's absolutely banged to rights. There was no evidence of the Southport Mosque being attacked, either just a photo of a broken window, broken glass on the floor, and all these crews, mobile phones, no footage. Yeah, a lot of the time, a lot of attacks are fake. Obviously, you can't prove which ones are and which ones aren't. But nothing like that surprises me. He actually incited no hams heads to go out and attack people. Yep. Yeah, I've seen things about that, and they're probably telling them to do it in case like white supremacists burst in there or something like that. They won't be saying it's to be scared of Muslims or blacks. They'd be saying to be scared of white supremacists. Or just nutcases, in general. If I remember when I was at school, there was virtually no security. People could just walk in and out of the school, and that was infants, juniors, and senior school. Like when I was in the sort of infants and juniors, you was always sort of in a class with a teacher. You wouldn't be doing anything outside the class. But even in senior school, people used to just come wandering in and whatever like that. Nowadays, they've increased the security so much. I suppose you had Dunblane, and then you've had other incidents. And again, with a lot of these foreigners, what you need to remember as well is that it's not just the Islamists. You've got like blacks are 10 times more likely to be affected by mental health as white people. So if there's a chance of a white man going nutty like Dunblane, then you've got that 10 times with a black man. Anyway, I think that's enough for the Ricky Jones thing. Like I said, I'm gonna report him if I can. Active Patriot has warned that apparently it's a potential ISIS threat to behead kids in schools. Yeah, I saw that. Apparently, he's getting in trouble for saying that. So we'll see. I don't know where he actually got that information from, but we'll see what happens. What happens with that? The next thing I'd like to speak about is the Notting Hill Carnival, which is obviously starting on Sunday, and Chelsea and Kensington Council have been shipping old people out. I think 21 old people they've been planning to. 21 old people that live directly on the route are getting a trip down to Eastbourne, which hopefully they'll enjoy, but obviously they'll be worried about their houses and what they're gonna come back to. So there's all that going on. The Notting Hill Carnival, in my opinion, if that was a white thing, it'd be banned. No matter what happens, unless a ridiculous amount of people get killed, it'd be described as mostly peaceful. And we all know what it's like. Apparently, the police have been told this year not to dance, which you'd have thought that would have just been standard anyway, because they just look like absolute jokes when you see them dancing around. And some people think it might improve relations with the black community, but it doesn't. It's just a show of weakness to people that are bullies anyway, and it just shows them weakness. It's not going to. It doesn't help. So, and it's degrading as well. Surely, if someone I know a lot of these police officers aren't the sort of police officer from years ago that people respect, but it must be degrading to do anything. I know when I was in the army, if I'd been told to go and start dancing and mocking having sex with someone and whatever, whatever like that, it'd be absolutely devastating to have had to do it. And for any sensible, like a lot of these police women, some of them might be terrible people that like that kind of thing, but probably most of them aren't. Probably most of them are just sort of just going along with it because they don't want to be called racist. And in my opinion, a lot of it is a sexual assault. It's not. It'd be a sexual assault if one of us did it, and it's a sexual assault when they do it. Our country is full of military-trained jihadis, and they want them here clearly for their new job to put us down. I hear that quite a bit. I don't actually believe that is that accurate. I think they are. The majority of them are. The Syrians, anyway, were the ones that came over, like when Assad was still in power. They were basically fleeing military service. That's why they're mainly men, because Assad was calling up the men to fight for their country at a time of need, like they should do, like our previous generations have done, and they either bottled it or sympathised with ISIS. There probably are some ISIS. Well, there definitely is a load of ISIS sympathisers amongst them, but I wouldn't have thought most of them are. They just want an easy life. They know that the law's lax here. They know they get loads of free stuff, and things like that. Like to try and keep, whether it's Europeans or Asians or Africans, to try and keep some sort of trained army on standby, living in hotels and bedsits. You need to have sort of discipline every day in the army, whether you're in barracks, whether you're on exercise, or whether you're actually in a war zone or on tour. You need to sort of maintain some sort of discipline and have drill. Even in the Troubles, with both loyalist and Republican prisoners, they were doing drill and that in the prisons and trying to maintain some sort of discipline. So I can't imagine that somebody would send trained soldiers over here, or I say send or bring trained soldiers over here, and then just leave them sitting around in hotels for years. It could be possible, but it seems a bit far fetched to me. There's still a threat to us. They're still dangerous. We've got this. I wasn't dodging that one. I'm just going to come back to that. Is the NF still a registered party? Yeah, it is. Yeah, and hopefully we're going to be making some gains now. I said on the last live stream last Thursday, I finally got round to sorting out the online payments. So, and thank you to the two people actually signed up while we were doing the live stream last week. So thank you to both of them and all the people that have signed up since. But now people can join up on the website natfront.info/join donate. I've only got that at the I sound like I'm a bit more important than I am. We have only got that for UK members at the moment. Probably sometime next week I'll sort out the international members, because that's like £10 more expensive, obviously, because of the extra postage, and some donation things. At the moment, you can just join up for £11, and there's no donate or international membership. So hopefully that'll be getting sorted out. So we're still a registered party. We've been registered since '67, really. I think there was like a couple of weeks when we weren't registered, when we was changing over back in 2013, I think it was, something like that. But other than that, we've been a registered party the whole time. Yeah. more likely bring them over to kick off and then bring in authoritarian law. Yeah, I think that's 100%, 100% correct. I remember years ago I was stopped under Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act, and while I was being questioned by the police, one of the police officers said, "No, sorry, I said something about 9/11," and one of the coppers said, "Oh, that's what's caused all this change and why all these laws have been brought in and things like that." And I said, "What, the Terrorism Act 2000 was brought in because of 9/11 2001? It's like right before 9/11 they were bringing in terrorism laws all around the world. I wouldn't go as far as saying that 9/11 was an complete inside job, like some people say, but I think they did know that something was going to happen before it did happen, and they was all getting ready for that. And yeah, they like things like that. It's like these climate protesters. The police had laws that they could have used to deal with them, but they let them get out of hand, and then they use it as an excuse to bring in new laws. And then it's the same with the blacks, and it's the same with these asylum seekers as well. Rather than just deal with them under current legislation, they just use it as an excuse to bring in new legislation. And there's a lot of people, like with the climate protests, when they changed some of the laws over that, a lot of people was because they've been so inconvenienced by the climate protesters, celebrated that, when really, if it had just been brought in on its own, people wouldn't have accepted it. So yeah, most likely, with all these things going on with asylum seekers and this, that, and the other, they're going to use it to invade people's privacy and stop us from saying things and various other things like that. I think that's 100% spot on that one. That should be fun. I assume that's talking about the Notting Hill Carnival. I will give it a miss. I went to live in Shepherd's Bush, and it was mental. That was in the 70s, and I had a lot of Kurds that came here, and they hated Assad. Yep. Now, the thing at the moment is we're in like a rebuilding stage, because obviously when the BNP, when the National Front was big in the 70s, there was like branches all over the country, and then when the BNP was big in the early 2000s, there was like branches all over the country. But now we've only really got a couple of branches, and most of what we do with people is online. So we don't really have any representatives in Wales at the moment, but we're hoping to work on that. We're going to be bringing out some leaflets soon, and then what I'll probably do is, once we've come up with some leaflet designs, I'll probably either on my live stream, or I might do a National Front live. I'll probably be off doing a National Front live stream. On a National Front live stream, we'll test out a few leaflets to see what people like. So I'll keep everyone on my live stream informed of when that's happening, and we'll get some leaflets sorted and try and get things going. Because obviously we've just had a Conservative government for years, and everything stagnates then, and nationalist parties tend to do better under a Labour government. I know the country goes to shit, but it was going to shit under the Tories, but hopefully we can get a few things going. Another thing I've been noticing lately, like, it's only been just over a year since the Conservatives lost power, and the things they seem to be saying, a lot of it sounds good, but when you take into context that most of the crap that's going on under Labour was going on under them as well. They're talking about stopping the boats and this, that, and the other, which is which is it's great to say now, but why didn't they just do it? Why talk about it now? Why didn't they just do it? They're talking about biological men in women's prisons and things like that. But that was happening under their watch. Why didn't they just sort it out? It's so ungenuine, really. And the problem is, people have short memories. So many people go, "Oh yeah, the Tories are going to sort this out." Not so much now. A lot of people are sort of jumping on the Farage thing. Once that falls apart, in it'll be 2029. There'll be loads of people going, "Oh, we got to back the Tories. Don't be voting National Front or anyone else because you're just splitting the vote. We need to get the Tories in." And then when the Tories get in, they'll be just as bad as they were every other time. Ukraine is the only legit white nationalist country. I'm not that keen on the Ukrainians either coming over, because the way I see it is most of Ukraine isn't actually at war. They've had some problems that should have been sorted out. The Obama administration probably tried to start a war in 2014. That all went quiet while Trump was in, or else there would have probably been a war in 2016, 2017, something like that. And then again under Biden, it's all kicked off again. But a lot of the regions that Russia went into originally are Russian regions. So the people there speak Russian. There's a mix up because of the end of the Cold War, should I say during the Soviet era, where the Soviet Union split up areas to make them easier to manage, and they put bits of Russia into Ukraine, and obviously it hasn't worked. And then when the Ukrainian government was overthrown, a lot of Russians resented it. It's like Crimea. Like the vast majority of the people in Crimea are Russian. They had a vote on whether I think they had a free choice. I think they could either be part of Ukraine, part of Russia, or independent, and they voted to be part of Russia. I know that the Americans didn't recognize under Obama, that that referendum, because it wasn't everyone in Ukraine who got to vote. But when Kosovo voted for independence, they didn't let everyone in Serbia vote. So if you don't recognise that, you shouldn't recognise Kosovo's independence either. So I think all these foreign wars we should just stay out of. And you can't hear the truth of what's going on out there. Like from the whole start, it go within a matter of days. 1 minute they're saying that Russia's being smashed and they're going to get defeated, and how well the Ukrainians are doing, and then the next minute they're saying if we don't give them more help, Putin's going to roll through Europe and he'll be invading us. Which one is it? They're all lies. Yeah, I think that's right. Tories are like cheating girlfriends that keep pleading, "I can change." At least we know where we stand with Labour. Well, to be fair, Labour do it as well. All the promises that Keir Starmer made in the run-up to the general election, he was going to. He was claiming that the Tories were going to scrap the winter fuel allowance, this, that, and other, which they didn't do, and then he landed up doing. He's backtracked on lots of other things, like the two-child benefit cap. I think it makes sense to keep that anyway, rather than doing it. But he did pledge to do it before the before the general election. And when he was campaigning to become leader of the Labour Party, he said that he'd be like it's not his exact words, but he said he'd be like a unifying leader, and people from the left of the party and the right of the party could all come together. And then as soon as he got in, he started having a purge of them. So we had it. I'm trying to think what year it was now. It was it the last? I think it's probably the 2000 council elections in Croydon. The Labour Party put out a leaflet saying Croydon needs change, vote Labour. But we had a Labour council at the time anyway. So it's like, we should implement change by voting for the same party that's been failing the whole time. And both of them do it. I think one of the problems is that too many people vote. A lot of people look at it to be more democratic, the more people that vote. But what tends to happen is by things like postal voting and other things like that, people that aren't at all interested in politics, they end up going and voting, and that waters down genuine votes of people that are actually interested in politics. Probably more should be done to get people interested in politics, but there shouldn't be any effort made they should do away with postal, not completely do away with postal voting, but you should need a proper reason to want a postal ballot. But anyway, yeah, they're in fact, the Tories, Labour, Reform, all the main parties are so. Remember the Liberal Democrats when they stood in the 2010 general election, pledging to. I think it was a pledge. It was mentioned anyway. I think it was a pledge. I'll check on that. But pledging to do away tuition fees, and then in coalition, they voted to increase them. So all the main parties, you can't trust them. I think what it comes down to is they've got two masters, haven't they? They've got a political party, or the government, should I say, the master of the government should be the people. But what they've got donors and the people. So they're telling one thing to donors and they're telling another thing to the people. And also they make promises that they haven't financed, and a lot of the time, I think they've got no intention of keeping it. It's like Starmer's said that there was like a black hole in the, was it 20 odd billion pound black hole in the economy, but in Parliament, the official opposition have like almost as much access to all the records and things. They've got SPADs working for them, and they've got almost as much access to the records as the actual government. So really, like both now and under the previous government, the opposition should know almost. They obviously don't know exactly what the government's going to do, what the plan is, but as far as things stand at the time, they know as much as the government. So if there was a black hole in the economy that he didn't know about, why didn't he know about it? Probably because what they do is they probably get their SPADs to be working on campaigning and things like that, rather than keeping track of the economy and other things that they're supposed to be doing. Cheers, mate. Thanks. Were you in Dover in 2016 when it all kicked off? I wasn't at the really bad one. There were so many Dover protests around that time. I'll get a bit confused as to which one was which. But I think I went to a couple of them in 2015 and one of them in 2016. I think it was the January. I think it was the January I went to 2016, and it kicked off. It kicked off a bit. There was like loads of things getting thrown and punches and kicks and things like that. And but it wasn't the main one where loads of people got done for it. I wasn't at that one. To be fair, I could see that it was gonna be like that, and I think we advised our members at the time not to go, because you only land up if you just land up in a big punch up. It's obviously us that are going to get nicked rather than the far left, who always instigate the trouble. and you don't even gain anything out of it. All the publicity is negative. You'll end up with people in prison, and you haven't gained anything for it, which is what happened. Assuming I'm talking about the right Dover. I don't know the full details of this thing with Ukraine with the language thing. Yeah, I'll have to admit there that I'm not 100% up there with all that. They had two referendums, one in 90s, one in thousands. Both times they wanted independence or part of Russia. I assume that's Crimea we're talking about there. I didn't know that, but it makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that because that quite often got pointed out under the last government when Labour was attacking the Conservatives on the NHS, and they were saying, "Well, just look in Wales, and that's just as bad." But foreign doctors, foreign nurses, and foreign patients, you're going to land up with a third world NHS service, and sometimes that's the plan as well. Two other examples before the privatisation of the NHS. If you look at the privatisation of British Rail, where for years they deliberately didn't invest in it, they let things fall apart to make people want privatisation. And then when privatisation first came about, a load of money was invested in it. Things did improve for a bit. And it was only after that the prices started gradually going up and up and up and up to the ridiculous levels they're at the moment. But when privatisation first came about, a lot of people supported it because it had been so bad before, but it was deliberately bad. And then you look at schools. I think it was the Tory government before last that started privatising schools with the academies, but they sort of only done it as like a test. I say only done it as a test thing. They obviously would have carried on, but then Labour got in '97, and then Labour just went mad with privatising the schools. And what they were doing was they was letting all the buildings get run, not all the buildings, the schools they wanted to privatise. It was underinvesting, and then they were saying you're only going to get investment in a new building if you accept privatisation. And then they was throwing loads of money at the schools. And they all got like fancy equipment and buildings and things like that to make privatisation look like a good thing there. Yeah. And I think that's what they're doing, both Labour and the Conservatives, with the NHS. They're deliberately running it down, and then to make people think, oh, it's got to be better. It's got to be better private. But personally, I think we should keep a state-run NHS. But probably the biggest drawback with the NHS is the fact that it attracts scroungers. The far left always say that it doesn't, and that it's very low amount of money to spend treating foreign patients and things like that. But I think it's the fact that they're just not keeping record of it. I'm not sure what it is at the moment. I looked it up a few years ago, the cost of treating one person with AIDS, and it's a few years, I can't imagine that it's gone down. A few years ago, it was £10,000 a year. And that's just for the AIDS medication. If they've got secondary illnesses and things like that, it goes up even more. So if you look at all these Africans coming in, every single one of them that's got AIDS is costing twice as much as they're spending on everyone else for all of their health concerns. On top of that, they're going to have other health concerns as well. So, and then you've got things like vitamin D deficiency, female genital mutation, inbreeding, and the violence and things like that. So that's all these things are coming in, and they're damaging. They're pulling the NHS. They're pulling the NHS apart. I was just walking around in Croydon today, and funnily enough, I was thinking about the main hospital in Croydon is called Croydon University Hospital. But when I was growing up, it was called Mayday. But what happened was people started calling it May Die, and it got quite common that probably about half the people were calling it May Die instead of Mayday. And so what they decided, rather than sort out the underlying problems, they decided just to change the name of it. So it's now called Croydon University Hospital. An absolute joke. But like I said, if the NHS was well run, they wouldn't get away with privatising it by deliberately running it down like they did the railways and the schools. It makes it more appealing to privatise. Yes, Tony, he who pays the piper calls the tune, so the donors come before the public. Yeah, they do most of the time, yeah. Obviously, they do need to try and balance. If they completely screwed everyone over all the time, they wouldn't get in. But that, again, it's the state of the electoral system in this country. It's why no nationalist party has properly succeeded, because the way the finances are run. I was looking through some old blogs of mine from years ago, and I found one. I didn't even realise it was still up. I was doing some blog like 15 years ago, and it's still it's still up now. I didn't even realise that, and looked at it for years. And I was looking into the Croydon MP at the time, Gavin Barwell, and he it looks from his diary that he published online, like for the 2014 council elections, he just took a month off. Mainly, I think he attended a few things in Parliament, but he mainly just took a month off to campaign. And assumably, most of his parliamentary staff were Tory supporters, so I'm assuming they were all campaigning as well. So they got paid campaigners going out at. I'm assuming it's obviously I haven't got proof of this, but I know that up until that April, he'd been publishing his diary online. I think it was April 2014, and then all of a sudden it stopped, and he was officially running the campaign for the Conservative council who lost that council election. But they just take that time off, and then when the general election was called for last July. Croydon Council were cancelling meetings, or postponing meetings, should I say? So that meant that both the people on the council, both Labour and Conservative, I think there was a few Greens as well, or a couple of Greens, they had more free time to campaign, whereas people that are doing normal jobs have either got to take time off unpaid, use their holiday, or just try and get things done around work. So that makes it almost impossible. Like I said, that any sort of elected people or their staff, they get that a lot of their work that they're paid for by the taxpayer is actually campaigning. So that makes it almost impossible. And plus, any honest party, whether they're on the left or on the right or whatever, if you're being honest and you're not going to do shady deals with people, you're not going to get the big donors. You might get the odd big or fairly big donor who genuinely wants to do the right thing, but most of these donors, they're in it for themselves, and they want something back. So that's why, rather than give money to the National Front, they're going to give money to the Conservatives, to the Labour Party, or to Reform. I wouldn't say voting is pointless. It's not, but people need to understand that it is hard work, and anyone who gets involved, you've got to get stuck in, and you've got to be prepared for disappointments. There's not really any alternative. I know people talk about violence or revolution or something like that, but we wouldn't get away with it. There's not the support. Like most countries that have had revolutions have had lots of support from outside, whether it was from the Soviet Union or whether it was from the Americans and us. They've had outside support. People haven't really risen up and had a revolution on their own that I know of. Or if they did, it was hundreds of years ago, and it wouldn't be that they would have found ways of dealing with it. Protests are obviously worth doing, but again, you have to be careful with them because a lot of the time you're deliberately antagonised and pushed and tricked and pushed into doing something daft and getting in trouble with it. So although protests are definitely worth doing, you have to be very careful with them. But whichever way you do it, whether it's the protest route or the political route, it's an uphill battle. If voting made any difference, they'd not let you do it. Yeah, I've heard that a few times. Yeah. And also the first past the post system, because whatever happens, the two main parties, they go around knocking on people's doors, and if anyone says they're going to vote for anyone other than the two main parties, depending on who it is, they say you're voting for the opposite of what you want, and you're splitting the vote and this, that, and the other. We're the only ones who've got a chance of winning, even though they're no better. What people need to realise is that to some degree, it doesn't really matter whether the Conservatives or whether Labour win in the short term, because they're the same. They're the same as each other. Two cheeks are the same arse, as someone might say. Zelensky speaks better Russian than he does Ukrainian. I didn't even know that. I don't know if he speaks any Middle Eastern languages as well. I see he wore a suit the other day when he was in the Oval Office. The way he used to go around, or he still does, wearing his green T-shirt like he's in the army. To me, it looks like cosplaying, and I've got about as much respect for him doing that as I would do if the pandemic, because there's no need to do it. It's like well, he's an actor anyway, but it's like a Hollywood thing where you see some sort of revolutionary leader or something like John Connor in the Terminator films, and it's like this Zelensky, and he's like strutting his stuff around like he's been fighting the war himself, and that you half think he's going to run out the room and throw a grenade at someone and come back and say where were we and carry on talking. It's complete. It shows him up for being an actor. It's completely fake. I know people have compared it to Winston Churchill wearing a flight suit when he met with the Americans in World War II, but he literally flew out to America in a military plane. He probably would have half frozen if he'd worn like a respectable. I'm not a fan of Winston Churchill either, but I can understand why he wore a flight suit in World War II, because he literally did literally fly out there in a military plane. If he'd gone on a modern plane, it'd be ridiculous to have done that. Did have a couple of other things to talk about. That was it. There was I literally only just noticed this. Oh, can I even find it? that one? No. I literally only I can't find it. I can't get the actual. I tried to do a screenshot of the thing before I come on, but I was just looking at an article in the what paper is this? It's the Daily Star about there's a guy called Benjamin Gorman, and apparently he's a refugee from America now living in Spain. And if you look him up, what did I say his name was? Benjamin Gorman, and she's got purple hair, he's got a purple beard, and he's got an Antifa hat on, and the actual story is unbelievable. Like there's supposed to be refugees living in Spain, and they're living there because they don't like Trump. It's an absolute joke. The guy says he's too old to be punching Nazis, but he's my age, he's 48, and it's a complete and utter joke. And then as you read through the article, it actually says that another thing that they much prefer the healthcare system in Spain because everything's free. So these are like Antifa lefties, and they're actually showing up what a sham the refugee system is, where they're just basically there because they don't like someone, i.e. Trump, and they like the fact that they're getting better healthcare by being there, and they look like complete weirdos, and they got and it's typical as well with the Antifa hat on. They try and be intimidating, they try and look intimidating, they act all tough, and then as soon as anything comes on top, they act like the victims. Comments. So that was quite funny to look at. I'll put a link to that in the. I'll put a link to that in the comments thing once I've finished with it. I'm only calling it a night in a bit. Next week we'll be back to Thursdays again, so it'll be Thursday at 7:30. I've got to go somewhere tomorrow, which is why I'm doing this tonight rather than tomorrow night. At the moment, I've been out. I flew in. I was up silly o'clock this morning to fly back from Belfast, and I've been walking around Croydon today doing a bit of filming. So over the next few days, I'll do a bit more filming, and I'm gonna try and put another video up about Croydon now. Things have changed, and things like that. People have commented on my other videos I've done about Croydon, saying that to try and show other things and whatever like that. So I've got a few facts to show and stuff like that. So I'll probably in about a week's time I'll put a video up about Croydon again. Yeah. Yep, it looks like you've missed most of it. Oh. It's called the Kronks now. It's one of those sort of Americanisms where like people started calling it the Kronks as like a joke because it's like in reference to the Bronx, and then people have just like adopted it and started using it. There's obviously the Kronks Brewery, which is like one of these sort of trendy sort of breweries that makes like craft beer. I think so. There's the Kronks Brewery as well, and things like that. And they come up with these schemes. Like when Labour were last in, they had a "Don't Mess with Croydon," which was like an anti-littering campaign that I don't think went anywhere. It was just like slogans and T-shirts that they got printed and stuff like that. But they try and make Croydon seem to be like somewhere in America, like the Bronx or South Central LA or something like that. It's an absolute joke. We've got our history and our own culture. The same with giving credit to all these foreigners for bringing us all these different cultures and things like that. We had culture beforehand. Our culture is being deliberately replaced. Well, I must say I had a curry the other day, but but I cooked it myself. Cost about £4 or £5, and only took me about half hour to make it. So even if we do want to have a bit of foreign food, there's no need to be going to takeaways and things like that when you can just make it yourself. And another thing is, if you make a curry yourself, either from the original ingredients or out of a jar, if you spill any of it on your clothes, it doesn't stain your clothes. So it makes you wonder what they put in it in these takeaway things that probably isn't any good for you and isn't any good for your clothes if you're as messy an eater as I am. What's this one? We're scoring in some kind of third world dystopian hellhole. Yeah, I walked past that. I walked through there today, and yeah, it is. And it's quite early today. I was at like sort of early afternoon. I walked through it, and it gets worse and worse all the time. But again, some people celebrate that. I remember it when I was a kid, and it was lovely around there. Probably not lovely, but it was like a lot better than it is now. The cartoon pub used to be great for gigs. Brutal Attack. Yeah, I think I only went in the cartoon once or twice because it was. It's been shut for quite a long time now. It became a black pub for a while, and now it's been shut for years. It's still got the I think it was called Taboo or something like that when it was a black pub, and they've still got the signage up for that, but it hasn't been that either for years. Make it yourself, exactly. That's what I'm saying with the curries and that. Yeah, so things like curries, like they make out that we need immigrants to have curries, but curry's got to be one of the easiest things to cook. You mainly just throw a load of spices in and leave things to what's the word? Got a mental block there to marinate. That's it. You sort of marinate it. You just get a list of ingredients. Just watch a YouTube video or something, and I think you'd have to be a pretty poor cook. You could mess up doing a fry up before you could mess up doing a curry. I would have thought. Probably more people have burnt tomato soup than have messed up curries. So I think that's about it for me. Has anyone got anything they want to say or ask before I go anywhere? I've been on for an hour now, so boycott curry houses. Yep, and also boycott the Deliveroos and the people and again walking around Croydon, they're all riding their bikes on the pavement. Half of them probably shouldn't be here. We invented curry. They put the hot spice in again because they don't, like the Hindus in India. They don't really eat meat. So I think the British Army used the spices that the Indians were already using for other food to preserve the meat in the heat, and that's where all the that's where these curries came from. So it's a British invention, anyway. And again, like, people that think that we need Indians here to have curries, do the Indians need us there to have trains? Look, British invented the trains, so but to run a railway, and they just do it themselves. They might copy things off us, and we might copy things off them, but they don't need us to go over there and run the trains, the same as we don't need them to come here to cook the curries. Cat's great. That's Zoe. Come here. She's a little. She's a nightmare. She's about 9 now, but she still thinks she's a kitten. She loves to play and that. She's been sleeping for a bit, and then now that I'm online, she's come over to try and steal the show. See, you got some fans there, Zoe. See, making a impact. I have to set her up a Twitter account, and that she'll probably have more followers than me in a couple of weeks. Did you buy those curtains? I'm at my mum's at the moment. My mum must have bought the curtains. Not my ideal choice. Do you reckon Starmer is going to commit our forces to Ukraine? Hopefully not. Hopefully Trump will get it sorted out. I don't agree with everything Trump does and says, especially over the Israel-Palestine thing. But I think Trump won't want to commit American forces to it. So hopefully that will result in Starmer not committing British forces to it. I can't see Europe and us going to war with Russia without America, and I can't see America going to war with Russia. The only way I can see that happening is if there's some sort of false flag or something. If someone either goads Russia into attacking or pretends Russia's attacked or something like that. That's the only way. That's the only way that we're that I can see us all getting involved in that. But well, hopefully I'm right there. I could be wrong. Been wrong before, so yeah, I certainly don't want anyone. It seems that every war we get involved in, you've got Iraq and Afghanistan and things like that they're none of our business. Obviously, the Falklands was our business, but if we hadn't removed the ship from there and given the Argies the impression that they could just take it, that wouldn't have happened either. There's no most of these wars. There's no reason to have them, but it makes a lot of money for people selling weapons, and it's like they intend on perpetual war, isn't it? Because if you think you've had if you think from the Second World War, as soon as the Second World War ended, you had the Cold War, which obviously went from 1945, 46 right through to about 91, and then that's when it all started kicking off with the Arabs, and you've had all that stuff going on, and then now we've got the Russia-Ukraine thing. It's like there's always either a war or a threat of war, and again, people make a lot of money out of that, same as they make money out of diseases and other things like that. CIA, MI6 controls Zelensky. There'll be a false flag in a NATO country. Again, hopefully now that Trump's in. Again, I'm not the biggest Trump supporter. I disagree with a lot of what he does and says, but I think he's a lot better than anything else the Americans have been offered. I think if Clinton had been in when he had his first term, I think we would have probably ended up going to war with Russia back then. And again, if Harris had got in or got back in, should I say, because she was sort of running Biden's thing, it'd be in a lot worse state. Like, I think what he's been doing with Israel Palestine is terrible. If we'd had a Harris government. Yeah, in 2014, that's when Ukraine did a deal with Russia to borrow money off them rather than Europe, and then they got overrun with a CIA, and it must have been a CIA-backed coup. The amount of times they've done things like that, and they're there right away to. If something like that actually happened, like I said, it's almost impossible for it to happen on its own. You need support from abroad to do a proper coup. I say probably the military can within a country, but for a lot of people just to overthrow the government, you need help from abroad. So if a country wants to get rid of just one dictator or one leader and the military is fully behind it, they can do it on their own. But when it comes to the people overthrowing the government, they need help from abroad, which they've almost certainly had. And if it had happened organically, the Americans wouldn't know who to talk to, would they? But they seem to know who the people are running it straight away. And Keir Starmer has already declared war on the indigenous population of these isles. Yep, that's right. He's declared war on his own party, on the people of the British Isles. I don't think anyone can trust him. I think with a lot of these, if the money was right with someone else, or someone else had the photographs or knew where the bodies were buried, they'd completely be happy to change sides. You don't even know what they think, what they actually want. It's whatever suits them most of the time. Well, I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it a day now. So thanks very much everyone for coming on. And like I said, I'll be going live next Thursday at 7:30, and I'll be back in Belfast then. So thank you very much everyone. It's been a pleasure as always.